Hey everybody, we back.
That
Episode 4. So in this episode, we're pretty much just going to talk about friendship and how that can help propel you forward, how that can help you get out of a tough situation with the right friend or friends in your life. And we don't have, and I don't believe you need to have 20 friends, 30 friends. You have the 1, 2, 3 people. Though that's enough if they're they have the right mentality and the right heart. Those 3 people, those 1 to 3 people they can help you do some amazing things, and in return, you're going to be that one to help them do amazing things. So we'll get right to it. A is going to start it off, and then we'll go right into it.
yeah, man. That's crazy because you already started hitting some pivotal points. And it's interesting because I feel like we're in a time right now where people are going through, many things, whether it be a mental toughness or maybe a tough experience, like thinking vividly. And you remember this experience for me quite well. A few years ago, I had moved in a few different states within a short period of time, but I could vividly remember when I moved to Atlanta, and I was pretty excited because I was in New York. I lived in one state. Then I had an opportunity to move to Atlanta, so I was like, all right, well, we just have to roll up our sleeves again and adjust. So, me being the type of person that I am, where every new challenge is a new opportunity to grow. When I got to Atlanta, I started a new job. I was excited about that, but I'm sure we've all been in a situation where you get into a new environment and you really do your best, and it seems like nothing is working, which, it happens. So during those moments, you just clearly have to adjust. And I know around this time in my life, it was pretty difficult because I'm the type of person that, and I'm sure everyone's heard the saying before, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, well, it's time to roll up your sleeves even more and work harder. And one would think when you have that mindset and you do that things would get better. But unfortunately, in my situation, it was the opposite. Things got worse. And I mean, really worse, to the point where if you take a boomerang and you throw it, it comes right back. That's what it felt like my life was at that moment. But it was almost like, I don't know if they have a specialized boomerang, but when you threw it, the boomerang came back fast, and like the results happened double bad for me, if that makes sense. So a very confusing time in my life because I couldn't quite figure it out. And in this particular moment, as positive as I am, as much as I'm always listening to books, motivational videos, I did it all, and it still seemed like nothing was working. So I knew at this point, if I kept pushing the envelope and things continued to get worse, I'm going to start to have like a destructive mindset because, that's exactly what was happening, at least at that time.
So instead of having positive thoughts, your thoughts started to become negative.
Yeah. As much as I don't want to say that, that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah. Well, see, I think that happens when anyone, when we go through a long standing amounts of stress and disappointment. At first, we're like, you know what, we can handle that. We got it. We're going to take care of that. We're going to push through. And then after a while, it's like, yo, this is harder than I thought.
Right.
And after a while, it's like, beat this. Then you start to think some wild, unlike yourself type of thoughts. So that's natural. It's what was happening was a very natural occurrence. And at that point, what did you do? So at that point, when you started seeing that negative thoughts started coming in, what did you feel like you had to do next? Or what did you do next, I should say. Not even, but what happened after, you've been pushing, going hard. Because mind you, what you didn't explain too is that you went to Atlanta for a business opportunity, right?
Right.
As well as you went there and had a regular job too. So you were doing business and you were working, and both of those things weren't panning out as you would have hoped.
At all.
Right. So what was the next thing when you came to that, I guess, impasse? What did you do next?
I think what I realized that, and I'm sure, we spoke about this before we started, that, it's you may not need a bunch of friends in your life, but if you have that clear nucleus of people who are really your friends, where what's understood doesn't need to be said,
Mm-hmm.
know what that means, then you can reach out to them and find out, okay, my headspace, it's not functioning right now. Like
Right.
the why fine, but now they're crossed.
Mm-hmm.
First with you to help me understand what's going on in my head, so my next moves aren't destructive. And we all know what that means. And fortunately, you being not just a friend to me, but a brother for 30 plus years, I had you to just have a conversation with. And one of the things that I admire, or one of the many things that I admire about you, is when we're having a conversation, I feel like I was telling someone the other day, you have to be very careful when someone calls you for advice and you're giving them advice, because if you give this person advice and it's almost like you're telling them what they should do, and they do that and everything goes wrong, a lot of people won't take responsibility of all of that was going to happen. I'm sorry. They're not going to leave you in the mess.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've always respected, appreciated, and love about you is that when you're having a conversation, you listen and you give that person the opportunity to make up their own mind on what they should do next.
I appreciate that. I think, and I do that inadvertently, I think too. I think I do that inadvertently because I believe we all have the answers to our own issues.
I agree.
And so what I do, if anybody, and not many people, but at that time when you came to me, I said, well, let's see what those issues are, and let's see what you could do to fix it. And through conversation, I don't know if it was more than one. I feel like we solved your issue in one day. That's how I feel, but I could be wrong. I feel like it could have been a couple of days, but I feel like it's like one solid conversation kind of brought the solution. But I feel as though we all have the answers to our problems, and so we got to fish it out, right? And so, what was this? What was it that we fished out from your perspective?
It was two conversations, but you're absolutely right. It was the one conversation where it was like in my head, it was like everything, like literally it was like a switch. And that conclusion was, although I've heard this terminology before, you were the first person that I've heard tell me this terminology, where you gave me the opportunity to actualize it in my head as far as me making a decision. I was basically at a crossroads, and clearly at that point I needed counsel. So you specifically, and I still remember to this day, you said, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but maybe a good way to think about what to do next is the pros and the cons. Look at the pros and the cons of where you are right now, and look at the pros and the cons of the decision that you can make that can probably turn things around. And if the pros outweigh this next decision you have to do, which was ultimately moving back to another state, maybe you should make that decision. I don't know. That's up to you. If there's more cons, then you know what to do from there. But maybe you should look at it from that angle. And again, just speaking from the heart, because going back to what we said in the beginning, this is why you need to have sound friends around you. When we got off the phone, wholeheartedly speaking, what you don't realize that you did was that you allowed me to empower myself. The ability to make my own decision so I can be confident with that decision. And now even thinking about it, which is crazy, when I made that decision, although I was not at a good place in my life, I was still empowered. So there was energy to make it. So when I made that next move, literally speaking, I made that next move with vigor, and literally things just turned around. It wasn't instant, but it was from that conversation which empowered me to make a decision and stick to it and do it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, bro. And I'm happy that I was able to assist you. Because it brings me joy to hear that you felt empowered, because I think a lot of people sometimes feel like they don't have power or they lost their power. And then how do you gain that back? That's a question. How do you regain? Like, you felt powerful moving to Atlanta, and through the experiences you went through, diminished that power, and then you regained it. And so I know people think, how do you get your power back? And
Right.
what's also interesting is I could, when I'm recollecting, I could sense you gained your power back because you moved back shortly after, right? And one of the first things you did is when you landed, you sent me the weather, and it was like 300 degrees. It was like 300 degrees, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not where you was yesterday.
Wow.
You're at a different place, and you were excited about it. It was obviously, you sent me a snapshot of the weather, and you were obviously excited, even though it was like 10 times hotter than where I was at the time. But it was but how do we regain that power? How do we gain that energy that we lost? And sometimes what I've understood is sometimes you have to vent. That's the first thing. Vent out the issue. It's like you have pressure building. So you have to let that pressure out. Or like you said, you're going to be destructive, right? So you have to first let it out, find a person you trust, whether it's a friend or a family member, someone you trust, that you can vent that out. And honestly, if you don't have anybody like that, and I suggest it for almost everybody, whether you have a person or not, get a therapist.
Yeah.
Get a therapist, and you don't have to pick the first one. You can go therapist shopping, find one that fits you, fit well, and they fit well with you, and get a therapist.
Especially if you have the mindset I had at that time, not to cut you off.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely if you're going through something very stressful and traumatic, and get a therapist. They can help you discover the underlying issue, right? Which is not always the situation, right? And then they can help yourself discover the solution to your problem. And so A went through, he had that crossroads, right? He had to go this way or this way. And I think we all end up with a crossroads at some point. And sometimes several times in our life, we hit crossroads that we have to make a decision. So first we vent to get our power back, right? And after we vent to that trusted person or persons, based on the conversations, we go back to ourselves and go, okay, now what? I take the information that this person or people given to me, and you process it, And then you make a decision on which road you're going to go down, because now it's your decision. You take
Right.
those steps. And
Right.
that's where the power comes from. The power comes from you talk to one or two or three trusted people. And honestly, if you talk to three people that say the same thing, it's probably the thing to do, right?
Right.
And then you go ahead and internalize it, and then you make that decision. And 99%, 100% of the time, it will work out. It will work out well. But it all depends. See, this is such an interesting conversation for me, because many years ago, I took a test called the Myers, or I took an assessment, right? And it's called the Myers-Briggs, right? And the Myers-Briggs assess, and it tests you for whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, right? And so most of us are one or the other, right? So what does that mean? Doesn't just the introvert don't just mean that you don't like to go out, or you don't, or extrovert means you like to go out and be around people. No, it sometimes it means several things. One of them means how you process information, right? So an extrovert usually goes out to people and to like get help. An extrovert will go to a family member or friend easily, but an introvert tends to hold it in and process it on their own and make the decision on their own. When an extrovert will go to people and get advice and get help, and you know, um, and so you were practicing the introverted way of solving your problem at first, just thinking through it, reading books, motivational speaking, motivational videos, and going and going and going until you were forced to be extroverted a little bit. So when I took this test, and I took the legitimate, there's a legitimate test given by the students, the immediate students of Myers-Briggs, and then there's the one floating around all over the place, and those are not the 100% accurate, according to the Myers-Briggs students. So I had took this test with one of their immediate students, and it was so interesting because after I did the test, he took my paper, he assessed me, and he ripped that joint up and destroyed it, like, because I could not leave. No one can get a copy of that unless they go through the proper courses. And so what we see on the internet, introvert, extrovert, that's not the real thing. So I took this test. I was honored to take this test. I don't remember this man. I think his name was Bernie. He was a professor at a university in Hawaii. And I think his name was Bernie. That's his first name, I believe. And he gave me the test. And at the time, someone who was a big Myers-Briggs person said to me, "Oh, you're an extrovert. You're an extrovert." And I was like, okay, I guess maybe, I don't know, whatever. I wasn't taking it seriously. Took the test, and I was equal. He said he was amazed at how equal I was, introverted and extroverted. He was like, he's never seen that before. I was 50-50 down the line, introvert, extrovert. And when he said that to me, I was like, I started to think on my own, like, how could that be? Let me see if I have any experiences in my life that shows that. And he was correct. This is how I process information, or I process my own life. I will go to myself first and just go through it, go through, think of all the solutions. And then when I'm done, I will go outside to people. So I'll go to trusted friend, maybe one or two family members, and ask for advice on the situation. And then I will take all the information from others and from myself, and then go back to myself and make a decision. That's how I do things. I've done it, and I was 24 years old, 23 years old. So I was been doing it then, and I still do it now. And so it's the same thing socially. I'm an introvert, extrovert. When I first go somewhere, social gathering, I am to myself. And then once one or two people come up to me, then I become social. So I'm very that test was so accurate. It was almost unbelievable, and I'm still that way till this day. If I don't know you, I'm pretty much not going to be talkative. But once I know you and I trust you, then I'm going to be the most talkative person you probably fucking know. Excuse my language. You know, honestly. So what what A is saying is get the vet those friends, vet the friends you already have, and see which ones are the most trusted. And those are the ones you want to go to advice, because then they will give you sound advice. On the flip side, and you saw in the other video, I was having a very stressful day. And I called you, right? And I called you up and I expressed to you. And what you said, he's like, yo, bro, I know it's easier said than done, but keep your head up. You would tell me the same thing. And that's what I did. I went in and walked the rest of my day with my head up. You know what I mean? I went along with the rest of my day with my head up. And just doing just that motion brings a level of confidence, even though you may not feel confident at that time, but that changes your perspective.
There's power
versus like, oh man, walking around like this promotes this, but walking around like this promotes this. So it's I do believe that definitely your words is powerful, and it can help people get out of a tough situation. Or not your example,
right.
Your example, and I hope I'm making it clear, because this is life, right? Life is an experiment, right. But we all go through similar experiments in our own lives. We go through difficulties, we go through good times. We have to hit crossroads and make a decision. But what's going to help us maneuver that is ourselves and the people around us.
Correct.
Because if you have bad people, they don't give you terrible advice. They'll give you terrible advice. Say that one more time.
Or they'll do the opposite of empowerment.
Right. Because how many people we've known, have done some really messed up things to destroy their life. Where were the people to guide them? Where were their friends to say, don't do that? You know what I mean? Maybe they listened to the ones that were like, hey, let's do this, and then got them into something that they could never get themselves out of. But that's what, we're here for these conversations. Of course, this is our 4th video.
Yep.
It's not as polished as a lot of other YouTube videos out there, but it's real. We're real. We're giving real life events and how we was able to maneuver ourselves out of it with the help of each other.
Yeah.
And of course, with the help of other friends that we will bring on in the future to when we bring up those conversations and those experiences, we're going to bring them on and have them express, how they helped us and what prompted them to do that. So these are real life situations that hopefully you guys will be able to, apply and help you succeed. And even if we don't have, a lot of views right now, we will. And I want you guys to comment and let us know, let us know the results of these things that we speak about. Because we're looking forward to hearing success stories. And so that's about it, guys. We're going to try and make these videos a little bit less lengthy, because we know we live in an age of, fast, even though we don't want to go super fast, but, we want to make sure that you guys are getting good information, but we don't want to make it to be very lengthy where we lose your attention. So thank you guys for watching. If it helps you, comment, let your friends or family know, educate them,
and share it. Someone probably see it.
Definitely. So have a good morning, have a good evening, have a good afternoon.
Thanks for coming out.
Whatever you guys at. Thanks.